Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the City Connect podcast with me, your host, Prince Carl. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm going to explain exactly where we're at. It's kind of a strange place. But this is kind of a,
It's a cool place.
It's a very cool place. This is a milestone because I was reading this thing that said that most new podcasts will not make it past 7 episodes. And so I am officially proclaiming myself as being at the 7.
Only took you 3 months.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know when I started this. I started pre-quarantine. But the current date today, it's May 23rd, 2020, the year of infamy that will live forever. I have a masked man next to me.
Happy birthday to Jessica Carlin.
Shout out to Jessica Carlin if you're listening. Thank you. We welcome you as a new listener. Our levels look pretty good. So Rob, just try to keep your levels around.
Sweet.
Yeah. Watch your levels. Watch your privilege. Watch your pronouns. And I'm just kidding. So I'm gonna introduce my first guest. Can we cue the music on this guy?
I thought we had a guest prior to this.
Well, for the episode. There we go. Go ahead and my first guest. With some Persian music playing. Born in Tehran, Iran, April 20th, 1975. We were born in 1975? 1976 in Tehran, Iran. Immigrated to the United States of America and has lived in the Bay Area and California most of your life.
You want to tell everybody where we met?
Yeah, I first met Sohrab, this is a good segue into the next part of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about going back to 1999 and how we met and we're roommates for a while. We're going to talk about a company that we both mutually worked at. We're going to talk about fatherhood. Sohrab just became a father, I think, 3 weeks ago. And I'm very excited to have him here. Sohrab was my best man in
That's
wedding
right.
number 1.
That's right.
Just to get things started, I want to talk about the audio. Sohrab, what's the deal with the audio? Why do we have these? Where are we? We're sitting like a Hollywood set or something.
Great question. So we are at the old Los Angeles Zoo. These are now derelict animal housings that were once part of the original Los Angeles Zoo. So we are currently sitting in what could have been either a bear pen cave or a lion cave. I'm not sure what sort of animal lived in here, but
There's a lot of like rocks, fake rocks. It smells of urine, but I think
I mean, no one's been here. I mean, no animals have been here for decades. So
right.
the only people that have kind of come through here are kids who come here to drink at night and party.
The urine you smell, I think, is human urine.
It smells,
Yeah.
yeah, really bad of urine in here right now.
Right. So that's where we're at, and this is kind of cool because I've always seen YouTube videos of the LA Zoo. Okay, let's cue the music for this next. For the next part of what we're going to talk about, if you're still listening, if you haven't turned it off yet. But we do have a very large audience. I'm going to do some, let me do some shout outs real quick. Shout out to my mom, I know she's listening. Professor X, I know you're listening. Sohrab Tomasmi, you got a shout out on the last one, you're here, so you're probably listening to this at some point. Oh man, James Jordan, you're one of those silent listeners. I appreciate you even though you don't acknowledge it.
Who's James Jordan?
James Jordan is an actor who I hope to be able to interview for this podcast. He was my backup guest because for a second I thought you were going to actually flake, but you didn't.
What has James Jordan been in? Have I seen
Oh
anything?
man, countless episodes of Law and Order. He's on the show currently called Yellowstone with Kevin Costner.
Oh, I like that show.
Yeah, he's a main player on that. He's
Really?
a working actor. He only works as an actor. He's been photographed by the paparazzi. He gets recognized, signs autographs. And I knew him. I originally met him, I think, in 2007, and so I've just kind of watched his career progress. I'm the same age as he is, so he's kind of an interesting guest. Very highly intellectual guy. He's the bad guy that always gets killed. I think he's been killed like 4 times in the different projects.
James Jordan?
James Jordan. So I researched James Jordan. He's on IMDb. He's legit. He's up there.
Okay.
But he'll be a future guest. I promise. We'll get him on there. We're gonna cue this next song, and if we could cue the music.
It's playing.
Oh wait, we're having some audio difficulties. we'll get it back, but
I have shitty T-Mobile service, so
so do I.
I'm not getting any.
I'm actually very happy with T-Mobile.
But it says it's playing, so I think your device.
There we go.
Operator error.
I just wanna go back. No, I guess all that. CD, oh Mercedes. Drive around listening to Shady like, oh, but under pressure. Those days it was so much better. Feeling cool in my youth, relaxing. No money, no problem, it was easy back then. Oh, wish that we could go back in time. Oh, go
Is that a CBD?
Oh,
At least let's move that around.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, so anyway, we're going back to 1999. So the first time I met Sohrab would have been in 1999, and I was interviewing roommates because I was living at 5183 Catoctin Drive in San Diego, California, in the college area, and it was a 4-bedroom house, and we had an opening for a roommate that had moved out, and we needed a new roommate. And so back in those days, you know, this was before cell phones. Craigslist.
Who's the roommate I was replacing, by the way?
I think it was a woman named Melanie. It was like a Mexican woman named Melanie that Stan Schutze, our landlord, was always trying to have sex with, but I don't think it ever happened. So anyway, she moved out, and I was interviewing roommates, and there was this thing in San Diego where you have to sort of sell yourself, and you have to go and meet, you know, these people before they decide whether or not you're worthy enough to be admitted as the newest roommate to the fray of the house guests. And so I remember I sat down with Sohrab. I'll never forget. Like I sat on the couch, and we started talking. And this guy just has a way of getting under your skin very quickly. Like the way he talks and sells himself. I mean, you fall in love with him like that.
Wow.
So we've stayed. It was true. I remember. I was like, man, I love this guy. And I was telling the other roommate, John Sharuk, who didn't get to interview you. I was like, there's no question. Like, we absolutely have to have this guy. You know, this is the guy. And like that's
John
so
Sharuk didn't even show up to the interview, huh?
Yeah, you didn't get to actually meet him.
No, I didn't.
So there's some kids running through the gorilla exhibit. So that's just kind of part of where we're at right now. They're going upstairs. But anyway, I remember meeting you and having like an instant rapport, and so we decided that you were going to move in, and yeah, we lived at a house in Catoctin, and
For some reason, I remember exactly what you wore that day.
what was it?
Because I.
You were wearing a white shirt, I think,
This
right?
guy is a character because I remember.
Wait, were you wearing a white collared shirt?
I don't remember what I was wearing, but
Yeah,
I just
you were.
remember I was sort of, I thought it was kind of funny that you opened the door and you had something that was like, I remember it being something like a Hawaiian shirt
Oh yeah, I did that
with
a lot.
all your buttons undone and just like bare chested.
Really?
Yeah, and it
I
was
don't
just
usually do that.
very college-esque, you know, just somebody who was lounging around.
I feel like maybe I did that.
You look like you belonged in PB and not necessarily college.
Yeah, but I feel like I was maybe trying to be someone that I wasn't. Like I was trying to be cool. Like maybe.
Really?
Yeah, like
didn't think
but
that
I don't,
impressed me.
because I never would wear something like that. I never
didn't
was.
think
I
that
wasn't that
impressed me.
casual, right?
I mean, you
I
looked like you were just kind of like beach bum attire, like.
Weird.
Yeah.
So what do you remember this interview that I conducted of you?
I don't remember specifically the interview, but I recall the ad, and I was moving out of the place I shared with Ashley Smith, I believe, at the time. No, I'm sorry. I was moving out of
Ashley
my
Smith?
girlfriend's house.
Your girlfriend that cooked for you?
I don't know if she ever cooked for me, but I was scrambling to find a place. And I found your ad in the Daily Aztec, I think it was, right? This SDSU's campus paper.
It's a newspaper, and for those of you that don't know what a newspaper is, no, I'm just kidding. But that was back in the days, and that was like the primary mode of advertising. Was like, yeah, it was the newspaper. There were no cell phones.
There was
were-
the internet. There was the internet.
Yeah, there was the internet, but
I don't
there
think
wa-
people were putting ads on the internet.
But did we? We didn't really use cell phones. Or we didn't have flip phones in '99, did we?
We had basic flip phones in those days. We
But
didn't-
there was no internet. There was no navigation. Like I would still use maps to get around, like
Yeah.
a paper map.
yeah.
You know, you'd highlight the whole route.
Well, data plans in those days were really limited. So if you bought a cell phone in those days,
Yeah.
you had maybe at best a 2G connection. So you were getting like almost, it was like akin to having dial-up on your phone or something. It was
Right, and I remember there was like a button with the world on it, and if you tap the button on the world, that could give you internet. But like you said, it was super slow downloads. It was like you'd wait 5 minutes to download a photo, but then, like you said, you'd have to pay an additional overage because you downloaded some nude photo on your flip phone.
I
So,
was
like, it
just
was- there was
thinking
no-
about this the other day. So like, I just had a daughter, and my daughter's whole existence is going to be completely different from our own.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Pretty soon, we're going to be the last generation that remembers the time before the World Wide Web and the internet, and just having instantaneous access to whatever you wanted on your mobile device. And there was a time when we didn't have that. You know, you didn't. If you bought my first cell phone, and I got it in like the years after high school, just because that was the time that cell phones started to
Which
really
was
come
what
down.
year?
It was maybe the year 1996.
Yeah, so 3 years before the year we're
And
talking about.
the
yeah.
cell phone cost me $500, and it was ridiculously huge, and the battery lasted for maybe 30 minutes. And the plan was obscenely high. It was about $120 a month.
Wow.
And I gave up on it after 3 months, and I remember GTE Mobile offered it.
And was it a Nokia? Like a
It
big
was,
chunky
I
Nokia?
don't know who made it, but it was GTE Mobile was the service carrier, and they're not even in business anymore. And I only had the service for 3 months, because it was just so expensive.
Wow. But what's weird is that there were cell phones in the 80s, but they were the big like brick phones, and it was
Yeah.
like this thing where only expensive, very rich stockbrokers or maybe like a realtor could afford it. But
You had to have real money.
yeah, but I mean, a cell phone is essentially a radio that can communicate with phone lines, and that's really all that it boils down to. It's really not that complicated if you think about it. It was essentially like military grade radios that would relay a radio signal down to a phone line.
Right.
And so, I mean, yeah, there was no capability for like touch screens or anything like that, but you could still at least have that if you were willing to afford it. But anyway,
We digress. We went from.
we digress. Well, we're going back to 1999, so
Yeah.
that's definitely relevant.
Pertinent.
And I hope this audio isn't too booming, but again, it fits the character of where we're at. I think it's important to talk about where you're at. I think that like a podcast is just in a studio, you know, like every podcast Joe Rogan does is in a studio.
Yeah.
I
Just
feel
signed
it.
a $100 million agreement with Spotify.
Right. Let me touch on that before I get this point out, but we live in a world, and I think it's cool that I try to find different places to do the podcast, because I think the place that you're in is almost as important as, you know, the place that you are talking about or whatever. So yeah, there is some differences, but yeah, $100 million. See, let me touch on that, because this is coming from Patrick Bet David, made a good point. Joe Rogan just signed an exclusive deal with Spotify to have his both his videos of his podcast as well as his podcast exclusively available on Spotify. That'll be available in September anyway. He was paid $100 million for this. And everything's coming, he's taking everything off of YouTube and his website and whatever. It's only going to be on Spotify. 48 hours after Spotify announcing this deal, the valuation of Spotify increased $4.8 billion, almost $5 billion in new revenue was created based on Spotify's stock price increase. So Spotify signs Joe Rogan and gives him $100 million exclusivity. He's excited about $100 million, but Spotify makes $5 billion in 48 hours. So my question is, did Joe Rogan get ripped off? Should he have taken the stock options? Should he said, well, give me 50 million cash, but I'll take the rest in stock options, and maybe he would have rolled that up to like
Yeah.
20% of $5 billion is still $1 billion, guys. I mean,
And 100 million is what Howard Stern got almost 10 years ago switching from terrestrial radio to satellite radio. So,
but that was
10
a
years
stupid
ago.
move if you think about it, because everything is on mobile phones right now. Everything is going to be Spotify. So for Howard Stern to go from traditional radio and make that move.
I mean, his audience shrunk, no doubt.
Yeah,
but
because
his bank account.
satellite radio is not even really a thing anymore.
He wasn't going to get that kind of payout from terrestrial radio, though. So.
Well, I think that his reason for moving was similar to Joe Rogan's, which was that he didn't want to be silenced
Censored,
or
yeah.
censored. So moving to satellite was like the new thing, and he was going to be able to say whatever he wanted, and he got a ton of money. But I think in the long run, he became less relevant because he's on satellite radio, which was the last time in news where he's actually listened to satellite radio. I think my mom sent me one, I never set it up. It's like, who actually listens to
I've
it?
never signed up for that service.
So I can't imagine that his total number of people listening to him has stayed consistent.
Yeah,
It's
no,
probably
only the hardcore
decreased.
fans.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to 1999. So this was around the time of the 2000, or the 2000 presidential race. George W. Bush was elected, beating out Al Gore.
Al Gore, right? Yeah, this was
Was
the
Al
hanging,
Gore
this was the
second?
hanging Chad's election.
Yeah,
Where
because
it
the
went all
second
the way to the
election-
Supreme Court.
the section. Are you sure this isn't the second one? In
Well,
04?
who did Bush Jr. run against the first time? He ran against Al Gore, yeah, because Al Gore was the successor to Bill Clinton, and so
Right.
that was George Bush Jr.'s first run. It was against Al Gore.
What was I'm drawing a blank on who George W. Bush ran against.
The second time,
04.
yeah, who did he run against? It was John Kerry,
Yeah, John Kerry.
and
That
he got
was a very
swift voted. He got swift voted.
yeah, that was a very unrememberable
Yeah.
campaign. Anyway, so he had just been elected, and so I was in San Diego State, and this is a funny story. Every time I tell this story, it never gets old, and this is a good story to tell. So I was at San Diego State. I was in the film department, and So Rob was kind of like my muse. Like I would have him as my main actor in all these short films we would do, and that was how we were learning to be filmmakers. And we would actually shoot film like that needed to be processed and then was digitized, and then we'd edit it digitally. And this was cutting edge. Like to be able to edit. I remember I had a home system.
Super 8.
Yeah, we filmed on Super 16.
Yeah.
Super 8 was a step lower, but this was Super 16, and then Professional was like 32
And
millimeter.
you actually went to photo camera, I remember.
Yeah, we go to Photocom in Hollywood to process and transfer over our film, and they kind of ask you, how much color saturation do you want? How much hue do you want? What's the tint look like? What's the blacks and the they could literally, they were projecting an actual film print and then transferring onto video, and in the process of doing so, would it be able to transfer everything? This is all done digitally right now. I mean, basically everybody does it on YouTube with their
Yeah.
phone or whatever, but back in the day, I bought a Power Mac. This was the year 2000, I bought a Power Mac, remember, and it had USB and the ability to actually play video on the computer. I remember you coming into my room, we were sitting on my computer,
I
and
was
you
pretty
thought,
impressed.
yeah, you were like, oh my God, that's so cool. Remember I would play
Yeah.
a video on Final Cut Pro, and it was like the coolest thing ever to like play, manipulate, and edit tangible video on a computer, because you just never did that.
And I remember
There was no video on the internet. It was all
There
like
wasn't.
static photos
Yeah.
or text.
and
there was
Final
no
Cut
video.
Pro was an expensive program, so I was just surprised
Yeah.
that you would own the copy of it, because it was like a
No, it was
at
like
the time,
$3,000.
it was like $400
No, it was like $3,000,
to buy Final
Yeah.
Cut. Wow.
I think. I remember there was like these rich kids I went to school with. One of the kids that went to one of the other school at USC School of Film was Shane Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's son, rest in peace, unfortunately. But these kids would go all out, and they would hire their teachers as cinematographers you know, thank you. And they would, that's the gorilla fart. And
Spiders barking in here.
that's right. So I was wearing a gorilla shirt, which is very appropriate
This is
for
actually Harambe.
Harambe. Yeah, rest in peace. But I mean, we're in a gorilla cage. How more
I thought it was
appropriate could it be?
apropos.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, these kids would go all out and make these films and spend way too much money. And I still have a copy of these. Anyway, it's one film.
Shout to the guy who made Phantom of the Shadow
Phantom of
for
the Shadow.
$12,000.
That's the one film that got away. The guy who made Phantom of the Shadow was another one of my students, colleagues, and he was on student loans. I don't know, what were you on? You were on some student assistant?
I was on student loans, and I also just paid my way through just odds and ends jobs I had.
What were some of the jobs you had back then?
I worked in the office actually at SDSU in the College of Professional Studies or something like that. I just was like a paper pusher for some office in there.
I worked
I got $8 an hour. I remember that.
I worked at KCRW, which was the first PBS affiliate in California.
KCRW is here in LA.
No, I'm not KCRW,
Uh,
KPBS.
KPBS.
KPBS was the
Yeah.
first PBS station,
In
I
California.
think on the West Coast or something like that, but I worked there. And I made probably around
What did you do for
$7.
them?
I was an office assistant, and I was basically everybody's bitch. And then I was kind of flaky, and I was kind of like, well, I'm going back to school, but I would kind of come in and work, and then I would go to school, and I was just totally flaking out. And then I remember there was this sweet little old lady who was technically my boss, but there was no one else that she was the boss of. I was the only person she was the boss of. And they kind of didn't know what to do with me, and so they're like, yeah, we gotta let you go. And I remember she felt so uncomfortable,
Telling
and
you were
she was firing me, but I was probably the only person she had ever been above.
Right.
So it's like, darn, you gotta pull the trigger on this guy.
Yeah.
And I felt kind of bad that she was put in that position, but I totally understood, and it really didn't matter either way because they didn't even know. But that was one of the times that I was fired, let go.
I didn't even know you had a job the whole time we lived
Yeah, I didn't for most of it. Most of it, I
You
just
didn't
was
have the
really
job
lazy.
when we met, because you didn't have the job when we were living together.
Do you remember me being like really lazy?
No, super lazy. I remember you were fucking waking up at noon or maybe
Yeah.
1 o'clock, and then.
Well,
you
that was
go
a
to-
lazy period. I just want to emphasize.
I just
I
want to tell
wasn't
everybody out
always
there, whoever might be listening, this guy didn't get to class till maybe 2 or 3 in the afternoon. That was his first class, and so he would stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning every night, wake up at noon the following day, or the same day, and then go to class like maybe
And
an hour.
I
after
remember
that.
that I only scheduled like 2 classes one semester, and
You
I
had the easiest schedule. ever.
yeah, like I don't know what I was doing. I was just kind of in a holding pattern. And I ultimately did graduate from San Diego State. I did get my degree.
Yeah.
I actually did not get a degree from San Diego State. I left the university in 2002, but I did not get a degree until the year 2010.
That's right. You had to go back.
There was
and
an
finish.
8-year lapse. No, I didn't go back, but I transferred 2 of my classes from nursing school as applicable to my Bachelor
You weren't
of
like
Science.
Rodney Dangerfield and back to school. You went.
I was like gray haired, go back with all the ladies. That doesn't sound too bad. You know? That'd be kind of weird. Wouldn't that be weird to go back to San Diego State right now? And there's like 18-year-old kids there? God.
So funny to think that.
It was 20 years ago.
We were that young now. Yeah.
And that's the weird thing is I don't feel that old, but that was the year 2000 and it's now 2020. So that was 2 decades ago. Do you
Wow.
feel old? I don't feel old.
I don't feel so old, but a lot has happened and a lot has changed. I mean, definitely, if you look at pictures of yourself then and you compare it to how you look now,
Yeah.
you'll definitely like feel that age.
Yeah, like you had all black hair. Your
I
hair
used
was
to have
all
black
dark.
hair.
Yeah.
Now I'm pretty much salt and pepper, more salt than pepper.
Yeah, more salt than pepper. I'm starting to get the salt as well on the side.
I got
You
lines
can't really
in my
see,
face.
like you can't really see it. Like if you saw me on camera right here, you're gonna say that I have brown hair. But your hair it definitely
This
looks
is, by the
more
way, the
gray.
first time I've ever seen Carl's gray is really being prominent because
Yeah.
I always envied the fact that he had dark hair for pretty much
Well,
all the way up to his 30s, right? Like
but it's also the quarantine cut. This is
you're 39 now, or what are you?
I'm a 41-year-old man.
41. That's right.
I'm a 41-year-old man. Hey, let's
Grown-ass man.
take this camera and just go outside so we can just change up the audio a little
Let's
bit.
show the people the zoo.
Yeah, why not? Let's go up the stairs and see what we see up here. And then I gotta get that story about. Here, check this out. So, if you're so inclined to watch on YouTube, that's what you'll get here. But we're going through the, this is sort of like a old stone thing. It looks like an old prisoner, like a pirate thing. And I'm going up these stairs. Oh my God. And I don't think you're supposed to be here. Everything's covered in and graffiti. Wow. This is really weird.
I gotta get a picture of you in this thing.
Yeah, please take. This is definitely a photo op. It's basically a stone like cavern that looks like a pirate's
There's
gulag.
Been, like videos shot in this place.
Yeah, people have filmed a lot of stuff, and so now we're climbing under these bars. Because again, as I said, we're at the LA Zoo. Oh, it just stops up here. This is as high as it goes. This has to be some sort of a chimpanzee enclosure. So, Rob, because they come up here. Oh wait, come here. Oh, this is creepy.
Dude, this is way too low.
No, I got to get out of here. I just got scared because this is really creepy. I swear to God, I feel like we're in some sort of an old world prison. Yeah, it would. It would. So I have to do some sort of a contortion act to get around and under this.
It's 4 o'clock, so we gotta.
Oh yeah, we got to wrap this up. So anyway, as I was saying, as I just get down here, so we were filming a movie. Let's go out here. We're filming a movie at our house in Catoctin where Rob and I lived, and the story goes. What was the title of this movie, or what do you remember about this movie, Rob?
The movie you made?
Yeah, come over here closer. So
It was called.
there's a good view of the
It was called
Terminal Departure.
Terminal Departure, and it really made no sense because it was just some guy who had a bomb in his suitcase.
We were Rob and my character were going to the drug dealer's house to give him a bomb that would go into his suitcase so that when he stand over here. So when he would get on the plane, the plane would blow up basically.
But it was so obvious that it was going to be a bomb. So like, how would you have even gotten on a plane?
Right. Well,
Like
this
there
was
was a
all pre
timer.
9/11 though. This was pre. And I filmed this at the airport in San Diego. I just want to emphasize that.
I remember that. I remember you went around and got your permits.
I got a permit to shoot at the airport. So basically, we were filming, and there was a guy who was the main character of the film, Ronnie Bielstrom, and I asked, and I needed
Rod
to cast
Smith.
it. Let me say something about filmmaking. Robert Zemeckis, the writer-director of Back to the Future and some other classic movies, said the most important thing in filmmaking is writing and casting. Good writing, good casting is 95% of the game. Everything else just all falls in place. I think that my writing was pretty good in this, but the casting, especially Ronnie Bielstrom was like spot on because I was like, I need to find a drug dealer that looks like a guy who's spaced out on drugs and dealing drugs and just shady, like a guy you just feel like this guy's probably not on the up and up. And so I asked you, hey, what's the deal with that friend you have that comes around you smoke pot with? Remember that?
Rod Smith. No, it was. I don't remember what his last name was, but he was dating my roommate, Kendallyn Smith, I think her name was. And his name was Rod. And the thing that was, the only thing I remember about the guy is that he ended up giving Kendallyn herpes. And
we shouldn't put this out too much because that's a bad way to end the story.
We never named the guy fully, but
anyway. He was a very shady looking man. He had like his eyebrows were tweezed.
I mean, he
was
looked
very
like
skinny.
a user. He looked like
he was skinny. His eyebrows were kind of weird looking and he was just a creepy looking guy. Anyway, he was our main character. So we're filming this scene. It's a pivotal scene when we're all hanging out around the table, and I'll put this video up on YouTube. And so basically, we poured some confectioner's sugar,
Sugar.
a pile of it onto the table,
Yeah.
the coffee table as we're doing
Powdered
the scene.
sugar.
And then he had like a press-on nail, and he was using his nail as like to take bumps off
That was
the
my
cocaine.
Coke finger.
Right, it was this Coke fingers Coke nail, and he dips into this like massive pile of powdered white sugar, and we're filming this whole thing. So then we broke for lunch,
Ordered pizza.
ordered a pizza. So pizza comes, what happens?
The pizza man arrives and we greet him at the door, and he looks through the doorway and sees this huge pile of confectioner's sugar,
Of white powdered sugar.
which looks obviously like a huge pile of cocaine.
Because
and
we had it on a mirror.
we had it on a mirror. I mean, it looked very obviously like we were doing drugs, and he had no idea we were shooting anything.
Because there was really only like a camera in the corner. There really
Right.
wasn't that much. There wasn't like a lighting.
It wouldn't have
setup.
been readily apparent to somebody that we were. trying
Yeah,
to shoot.
we didn't have a crew or like a boom mic. It
Yeah.
was literally just maybe a camera in the corner and then us sitting
I don't
around a
remember his
pile of-
exact words, but I remember him saying something about wanting to party with us, and everybody, you and I, just started busting up laughing. Oh no, he came back later. No,
No.
wasn't it? He came
Wait,
back
let
later.
me do the punchline.
He came back later,
said
that-
he goes, "Oh wow!" Like he was really impressed by it. He goes, "Damn, and I used to do that back in the day." And he was fixated on it, like he had run into a pot of gold or
But
something.
didn't he? What the
So
fight-
all right. So let me finish the story. So that night, you had left, and I was still at the house. We had already wrapped filming for Ronnie Bilson for that day, and so I hear a knock on the door, and that was a little weird. And then
This is
I
hours later.
yeah, this is dark. It's
Yeah.
now dark, and so I answer the door, and pizza guy's there again. And I was like, "What? What did we forget?" And he goes, "Hey, man, that stuff you guys got on the table, I want to buy some." And I was like, "What the hell?" At that moment, I didn't know what to say.
You don't remember what he-
I remember just thinking, like, what do I say? Do I tell him this was all just a film, this is all fictional, and this is a joke? Because
You should have said
at the
we
time
already
we were
snorted it all.
we had told when he originally saw it, we played along like it was real.
Yeah.
So when he came
I don't
back,
think we ever told him we were shooting anything.
no,
Yeah.
and so when we came back,
Yeah.
he in his mind thought it was completely real. He wanted to buy a quick little hit of it. I don't blame him. And so
he
then
wanted to knock.
right, so I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I don't sell it anymore." Or I said something stupid like that. Well, that was the
The
end of it.
most
And I turned him
undrug
away,
thing
and I
you
could have probably sold it. I probably could have sold him some powdered sugar for $100 or
and
something.
then see him again next week.
Yeah, and then got arrested by the DEA. But that was a pretty funny story that went down.
That's actually the most memorable thing about shooting that whole movie.
Right. That story never gets old.
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
So funny.
When the lines of fiction and reality blend so quickly as they did. Check me out on YouTube, Prince Carl at City Connect, because this is a very visual podcast, and I'm trying to visually describe it as much as I can. But before
Should
we
you go back out that way and just kind of pan out to see what, so everybody can see what
yeah, let me just show a quick shot.
the zoo looks like?
So this is, like I said, we're at the Griffiths Park here, and this used to be the zoo. And so this is a very famous place that is in a lot of YouTube videos. And we started the podcast out in the gorilla cages. Let me pause it for a second and